Hello and welcome back to another Power Automate video. In this video I am going to show you how you can quickly delete items from a SharePoint list using the SharePoint API batch method. The reason why you would want to use this method as opposed to the standard method is that it is faster and it uses far fewer API actions. So we will start with an example and I'm going to show you how to build this flow from scratch. So we have got this SharePoint list here with 500 items in it, and normally you would build a flow that looks a little bit like this. You would do a get items action and then go into an apply to each loop and specify a delete action for the ID from get items. Now that will work fine, but there are two drawbacks to that approach. The first, and the reason why I'm making this video, is that it is quite slow. The second reason is that each of these delete item actions is an API action, and if you are deleting a very large number of items, you could quite easily exceed your API limits. So those are the two reasons. So for example, if you were deleting 40,000 items, that would be 40,000 API actions. I'm not going to run this flow because it will actually delete the contents of this list, and we'll do that in a minute when we build the flow from scratch. So let's have a look at the flow. It's only really got this initialize variable, and then everything else is in this scope called delete SharePoint items. You really only have to worry about two parts when you build it. This initialize variable action, the name of which is item count, and it is initialized with a value of -1. And this settings compose action. All you need to do is change this to your site address and this to your list name, and the rest will happen by default. The only other thing you might want to modify is adding on an OData query onto this get items action if you want to narrow down the selection of the items that you are going to be deleting. In my case, everything from that list is going to be deleted. So the rest of the flow builds a SharePoint batch API request to send SharePoint instructions of 1,000 per loop. So this do until loop will send 1,000 commands to SharePoint. In this, send a HTTP request to SharePoint action until all the items are gone. So if you've got 20,000 items, it will send 20 requests instead of 20,000. So that will really reduce the number of API actions that you're going to need to use. So instead of going through this flow in detail, I'm going to build it from scratch, show you how you can do it. It's only going to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll look at the results as a result of building it. So we'll go to create instant cloud flow. So the first thing we're going to do is, if we go to my blog, and the link for this will be in the description, you can go to the section called Flow Code and Implementation, and it gives you the instructions here. So the first thing is we're going to initialize a variable called item count. And we're going to set that to -1. Then I'm going to come back to my blog, and I'm going to click this button here to copy the code for the scope. So I'm going to do a new step. I'm going to go to my clipboard, press Ctrl V, and then paste that in. Okay, so within here you need to fill in the site address and the list name. I'm just going to copy those in. Okay, So once you've built the settings, compose action, the only other thing for you to do, if you want to, would be to put a filter query in here to reduce the number of items that are going to be deleted. So that flow is now done. I'm going to test it now. All right, let's execute here. Okay, so the flow is now running. Let's go back to our list and hopefully we should see, you can see the sum is reducing, so it has begun to delete those items. And while that's executing, this method takes about a minute to run, and the previous method with just this setup, this simple loop, takes about 4 minutes, so it's about 4 times faster. And coming back to the list now, you can see that it is in fact completely empty. And this is now complete, and it took 42 seconds. So let's just go through here and have a look at some of the run history. Here's our settings. This is the template that we created for the change set actions. And then we go into a do until loop. So the get items action would have retrieved 500 items, item count 500. And then we go into a select, which builds each of the deletion requests. This batch delete action simply joins the contents of the select with a new line character, and then the request is sent to SharePoint with the output from batch delete, and that's quite a large chunk there. And then we get back from SharePoint a list of results. I'll just put those into Notepad so you can see them. So instead of when you would normally execute a SharePoint action, you would just get a single result. These are batched into a response. So we can see here each one returned OK. And that is it really. So you can build that flow just by copying that scope from my blog. The reason that I made this flow is because a few people commented on videos and on my blog, how can I batch delete items, and how can I batch create items? So this video covers the deletion. I've also done a separate flow for creating items, which works really well also. That one is slightly more complicated, so that is going to be in the next video, how to create items in batch. But both provide significant performance increase and crucially reduce the number of API actions that you will need to use when dealing with large lists. In fact, the person that most recently messaged me wants to take 44,000 rows from an Excel sheet and put that straight into a SharePoint list. So I will probably build an example similar to that. Anyway, give it a go, see how you get on, and then I will see you in the next video. Good luck. Bye-bye.